What's up, world? Welcome back to another episode of Just Grow It, the podcast. I'm your host, Big City Gardener, and today we're talking about food waste. Food waste is plaguing the world, and we need to do our part to be better. Did you know that 1.4 billion tons of food is wasted worldwide every year? And here in America, we waste over 40 million tons or 80 billion pounds of food. Billions with a B. And we talk about not being able to feed people, but look at how much food we waste. 80 billion pounds of food is roughly 30 to 40% of all of the food that is grown and produced here in America. That is an astonishing stat. Every person in America generates around 200 pounds of food waste. And the worst part is, over 90% of this food waste ends up in a landfill. We won't even compost it. We throw it in a trash bag and have them haul it off to a landfill that produces methane gas that is then released into the environment, which helps with global warming. We all know how much we love global warming, right? Speaking about landfills, food waste is the number one product in landfills. It accounts for over 25% of all of the trash in a landfill. Why do we waste so much food? 1, poor planning. 2, not understanding sell-by dates and expiration dates. 3, like my dad would say, your eyes are bigger than your stomach, or impulse buying. That ties back into poor planning. Here in America, we have a problem. We see something and we want it right then. But we oftentimes don't think things all the way through. And that is one of the main reasons why we generate so much food waste. Another reason why we generate so much food waste is this messed up idea we have of perfection. If the tomato doesn't have the perfect shape and the perfect shade of red, farmers won't even send it to the grocery stores. Grocery stores won't even purchase it. That's why companies like Imperfect foods exist. There's nothing wrong with the bell pepper that's not as large as the green bell peppers that we want in the store. There's nothing wrong with the bananas that aren't as big as those Chiquita bananas that we see. But our eyes and our brain tell us that there's an issue. If you ever have a chance, go to a farm and see how much food is wasted at farms. See how much food is left in the fields because they know that the grocery store buyers won't take it because it's not the right color or the right shape or the right size. That's foolish. Wasting food creates environmental problems and economic problems. We already talked about how the food waste takes up 25% of the landfill. Now that food waste in a landfill, it doesn't end up composting. Did you know that 11% of the greenhouse gases that are produced come from food waste in a landfill? There's very little reason for people to be hungry when we waste 40% of the food that we produce. America wastes over $200 billion worth of food, and a majority of that is dairy. The average family of 4 throws out over $2,000 worth of food every year. Why? We can do better, and we need to do better. Now, where does a majority of this food waste come from? The average household produces the most food waste. A little bit over 43% of those 80 billion pounds of food that we waste comes from homes. Around 40% of the food we waste comes from restaurants. You know, when you go to a restaurant, the carrot has to be cut perfectly. But what happens to the other end of the carrot that doesn't make the plate? It just ends up in a trash can, which in turn ends up in a landfill. About 16% of the food waste comes from farms, and then around 1 to 2% of the food waste comes from manufacturing. It's safe to say that households and restaurants are the biggest problem, and we should really start there. As far as households, we need to plan our meals better, and we need to have a better understanding of what expiration dates actually mean. Also, we need to compost. There's no reason for all of this food to end up in landfills when we can compost it and turn it into black gold. Look, I used to live in San Francisco. The first thing I noticed when I moved to that city, and something that stuck with me, is the fact that they had compost bins the same way we have trash cans and recycling bins. I thought that was the dopest thing ever. And I don't really understand why every city doesn't do the same. In Houston, for example, we could take 25% of that landfill space and turn it into a composting facility. We could collect all of the food scraps from people all throughout the city. You could put it out in another trash bin. We could take that food waste, turn it into compost, and then either give it to home gardeners or sell it to home gardeners. As a matter of fact, if you gave your food waste to the city, you should receive an allotted amount of compost in return. Just my idea. Now, as far as restaurants, I'm not an expert on restaurants, but I know that in other countries, they found ways to help reduce the amount of food waste generated by restaurants. Whether it's donating the food, using the food to create some sort of alternate fuel source to power their mass transit, or even in a place like Denmark, they've created an app that allows the user to find restaurants and bakeries that are about to throw out the food, and you're able to go and purchase it at a fraction of the cost. I don't have the answers. I just want to bring awareness to the situation and say that we need to do better, especially in grocery stores. Around 30% of the food in grocery stores ends up in the trash. Why are grocery stores so big? Why do they stock so much food? There's no way that we can buy all that food, and it shows with the amount of food waste that they produce. Look, man, we need to be better. And this episode was just to bring awareness to this issue. Hopefully, it made you think. If you want to learn ways to compost your food waste at home, look into vermicomposting, look into bokashi buckets, look into regular old composting. If you want to learn more about those topics, you can check out the Just Grow Up podcast or any of the Big City Gardener social media channels. But this is bigger than Big City Gardener, so don't just look at my information. You can learn about these topics anywhere. Just Google them, and you'll see just how easy it is to set up a vermicomposting bin in your kitchen or on your back porch where you can help reduce the amount of food waste that you generate. I just did a challenge. Well, it wasn't really a challenge. It was more like I wanted to see how much food waste my family produced. And we produced about 16 pounds of food waste after 1 week. Now, I wish I knew how to make these things go viral, and I would start some sort of food waste challenge. And I would challenge everybody to keep all of their food waste for 1 week, see how much food waste you generate, and find ways to reduce that amount by 10 to 20% every week until it becomes a lifestyle change. We need to do better. That's it for this episode of Just Grow Up the podcast. I hope you enjoyed it. What I need you to do is to share these episodes with a friend. Tell them how much you enjoy or you don't enjoy the podcast. Either way it goes, I'm just trying to turn this into a top 10 podcast this year. Until next time, go outside. Wait, before you go outside, plan your meals for the week and learn more about expiration dates. After you do that, then go outside, get your hands in the dirt, and just grow it.